Welcome to this new episode of The Compass, brought to you by the Surrey Chamber of Commerce. My name is Lisa Carver from Carver Coaching, and I'm here today with Gary, my co-host from Capital Content. And our podcast is about navigating business and beyond. And what we really wanted to do was go beyond those traditional business conversations and really explore the human side of running a business. I'm delighted to say that today we are with Ali Fisher from Plans with Purpose. Hello. Pronouns she, her. Tell us a little bit about your business.
So Plans with Purpose has been in existence for 6 years. There are 3 kind of focus areas that we work on. So one, it does what it says on the tin, purpose. So helping businesses, brands kind of find what it is that they stand up for and fight for, both in a kind of profit, what's their offering, but also how do you go beyond that in terms of positive impact for people, for planet. Then it's about sustainability. So how do you underpin that purpose by being a responsible business? And a lot of particularly SMEs will go, well, I think I'm doing something in sustainability, but I don't know if I'm doing the
I don't have any
structure.
Right am I just doing it as a tick box exercise? Yeah.
How do you help them have the confidence to know what it is they need to do?
I've struggled a bit with sustainability. If I'm
Go on, Lisa. What are you struggling
with you?
Everything, right? Yeah.
Well, no,
carbon footprint. Paper free.
We are carbon neutral. So every year I'm going through. The
offsetting.
Offsetting everything, right? So I'm doing that, but there's a few. Sometimes I make some guilty decisions.
And I think as a business owner, you do have to do that, right? Because you have to think about money first and foremost, sadly. But then sustainability comes second. Like, we're paper free, but every now and then we have to print a document. So I physically have to go and drive to a printer's, and it's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
I have certain elements where I feel my sustainability is better than others, but I don't have any overall strategy.
So that's where I'm going to be boring and say that's why you need a strategy.
Absolutely.
That's why you need because you guys are both clearly doing some good things.
I mean, I'm thinking about it, but let me give you an example. So I'm going down a little bit of a tunnel.
We
haven't even started yet. I know, but I know we're going to be talking about belonging today, but just on that sustainability piece, it's like you're going to an event or you've got a few events coming up in the diary and you think, well, I do need business cards. I know they're a bit 80s, right? But I did actually want some business cards. I know I can send my details digitally, but I wanted some.
Yeah.
Right? I can get a set of business cards done. It will cost me about £20 to print. However, if I was to make the right choice and to get them done in recycled paper and, really, really make the right decision for the planet, I might be spending 150 quid. And sometimes it's that difference. I think sometimes when you're starting up your business, I've made decisions which I hope not to make when I'm a bit more established, but I've sort of made those because I think there's another piece, isn't there? Not just about planet sustainability. Like, I can't do anything to help the planet if my business isn't sustainable, and I kind of need to get it.
It's a tough thing to think about, right? Because there's a balance. But like I said, we could talk. This is a whole new episode.
Sorry, I've taken over.
We're going to have to do
another one.
Right? Yeah.
Sorry.
So I think today's topic is about belonging, right? How to
create a sense of belonging within your team. Yeah, I'll get us back on task.
Shall I say the third thing of what Plans with Purpose?
Sorry, absolutely.
No, so that's our next podcast will be on sustainability.
Yep.
Okay.
But the third piece, and I think why you've invited me here today, so I try and think of myself as a diversity, equity and inclusion mentor. So how do you help businesses? There are lots of parallels with that sustainability piece where I'll call it DE&I to be speedy, but particularly SMEs go, how do I do this? How do I start a journey? And DEI can feel really tricky. Topics are hard. You're talking about
yeah, man. It's going to be a minefield, right?
It is.
Yeah.
And people are sitting there going, oh, where do I start? And if I do that, are other people going to complain?
Yeah,
so
there's a lot of eggshells flying around.
They massively are. But what I found with the SMEs I've worked with is start the journey. Start the journey with the team together, get everybody's confidence up and create kind of actually a culture of forgiveness.
Yeah.
So this is a safe space. If we get something wrong, let's say we're sorry, but let's acknowledge it and then let's learn and let's grow and let's keep moving. But it's akin to the sustainability conversation where you go, build a framework, build a strategy, and then the things that you're working on are the priorities for your business,
Yeah.
are the priorities for the people, and then you can kind of confidently, step by step, move forward.
Love it. So absolutely with purpose, you know?
There you go. Purpose, sustainability, diversity, equity, inclusion.
So a sense of belonging, right? Why is that important? I know, right?
That's a biggie.
That wasn't even on the list. And I thought I'd just drop it in for you. But
It's psych safety, right? Psychological safety is what we think we're talking about. Is there much difference between the two? Would you?
I think it's in the same space, but Gary, think about your question of why is it important? I think there's the kind of head and the heart to it. So I think it's important because I'd like to think we've all got the moral compass that goes, you know, would you ever say you don't want someone in a team to feel like they don't belong?
No,
you
absolutely
would.
wouldn't. Yeah.
I would hope no one would walk in the room saying that. So there's the moral compass bit.
Yeah.
It matters for that. Also really matters from a business perspective.
Yeah.
So, you know.
You mean from productivity and growth and stuff?
Productivity, you know, a diverse team is a more productive, more creative, more effective team.
Yeah. Now let's really dig down. What do you mean by diverse? Because, like, you know, there's that first thought of what diversity is, where there's cultural diversity. But what is that? Is that all we're talking about?
Oh, you can throw everything in. I mean, I think a good place to start is think of characteristics, think of identities.
Okay, cool.
So you've got a really
breaking
list.
these down into sections of a person, right?
Yeah, because I think that's how you can end up with majority groups and minority groups.
Right.
So you've got different people that might be in one majority group, but a different minority group. You can get intersectionality, big word, but people who sit in more than one, multiple minority groups. And they're the people you've got to watch out for even more.
And are we talking minority groups in terms of cultural backgrounds, or do you mean their feelings or their skill sets? Or
so you can approach it. You can approach it through that lens. I think a really good start point is kind of the characteristics. So you're thinking gender, sexual orientation, race and ethnicity, religion, politics, disability, neurodiversity. There's a long list.
Okay, cool.
Which gives you quite a good structured approach and a lens to look at it through.
And how do you then? How do you assess that person? That is a tough thing to do. For me, if I try to think about now my employees and how I assume some of those things, obviously...
good word, Gary.
I know, right?
Assume.
Yeah, because, you know, yes, it's about having the conversation, but sometimes the conversation doesn't arise. You know, how do we go about that process of almost landscaping that employee to help with the inclusion?
So you've beautifully segued me into my first top tip. Can I give my first top tip?
Write it down, people.
This is the big one.
Cool.
This is the big one. So it's about knowing your team. But traditionally, we think of knowing your team probably as, have you had a cuppa? Have you had a chat? Have you spent some time together? But you've beautifully...
Water cooler stuff, yeah.
Yeah, really important.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, it really matters. But there's going beyond that. So you've just used the word assume. So if you picture an iceberg and you ask people, what are the characteristics underneath an iceberg, the identities that you can't see, you can't judge, you can't call by looking at someone, and what's on the top? And the majority of people, and if you just ask them honestly to rattle them off, most people would probably say gender, age, race. They'll all put them above the iceberg.
The superficial stuff, right?
Because it's quite instinctive. It feels
stuff,
instinctive, and we are taught as humans, it's how we've developed to categorise. We can't survive in the world we're in with all the stim we get without categorising, but it means we're categorising people. So my top tip is actually you need to know your people in a data way. Sounds a bit dry, sounds a bit dull. But so the best way I've found is an anonymous survey. So you might get SMEs who are running an employee engagement survey.
Yeah.
But when they run them, are they going deep enough? Are they asking questions like,
this is a great tip.
Do you feel you belong?
Yeah.
Do you feel valued? The killer question for me, do you feel you can turn up to work and be your authentic self?
So what that's a question in the survey.
That's a question in the survey. If you get one person who says they can't do that, you're not going to, how is that person?
And isn't there a thing related to that? Isn't there isn't it Gallup that has got this? They use an indicator as like, have you got a best friend at work?
Oh,
And
nice
it's
one.
if people say they have got a best friend at work, it's an indicator that they're basically in like a high performance team, and that that they're psychologically safe. And it doesn't have to be someone on your team. You could be, I've got my team, I function with them, but my best friend works on reception actually, and we have a lot of laughs or whatever. But that's an indicator as well, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But definitely I'd prioritise that kind of, do you feel you can turn up and be authentic self? The tricky, complex bit, so you get some people doing the employee survey. Great, absolutely.
That's a really good tip, especially for someone that I need to have things written down. And it's about translating emotions into words on a bit of paper, effectively.
Yeah. So to start there, get your questions right.
Would you run that? Sorry, I'm interrupting. Would you run it annually, or is it sort of like a quarterly?
So it depends a bit on how big you are. The ideal, if you're big enough, is quarterly.
Right.
Because actually, these are quite big things. And how you feel and operate in a team can change quite quickly. Yeah. So if you do it quarterly, it gives you a real
and you want to keep your finger on the pulse. Like I said, it's detriment to the success of the business, understanding the sense of belonging within the team, right? Yeah. So if you can do it more often than not, it's like an NPS score, right? You want to be able to change things straight away.
Yeah. And I would recommend an NPS. So for anyone who doesn't, Net Promoter Score. Yeah. So would you recommend being in this company to other people?
Yeah, a scale of 1 to 10, and all the detractors are under 9. Yeah.
I would include that as a question in your survey, because it gives you that kind of top line read. Yeah. And then all your other questions let you dig into, well, those people who were detractors, who didn't say they'd recommend this space to it. Why? Yeah. What is it? Is it about learning and development? Do they not feel psychologically safe? Do they not feel valued? You then get the answers to your questions. So that's your question bit.
Cool, that's step 1.
And the other bit we started talking about was the characteristics, the identity piece. And this is where it's really hard to sell it to your team. And I've had resistance. People going, why are you asking me? What's my gender? What's my sexual orientation? This is feeling a bit
uncomfortable.
Prefer not to
say,
Always, always, always give prefer not to say. Yeah. Nobody should feel they have to answer those questions.
Absolutely. But firstly, I guess it's a legal requirement also, right? You can't ask someone's gender.
And if people don't, this is a volunteer survey.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
The last one I did, we had 83% response rate. And that was the first one we'd done. I'd put a bit of money or a couple of beers on. If we did it again, I reckon we'd now get 100%.
Right.
Because the team saw the value of what came out. So if you share openly what comes out of that survey, and you show that you're prepared to act on it for the benefit of the team. So we learnt this about our team, probably got some surprises because you're going under the iceberg. Yeah. And we are going to do this, or we're going to talk to you and we're going to workshop how we move things forward. Then you get real buy-in for the team. And the bit we keep missing talking about is those characteristics. Yep. So you put them in, you do the long list. It's pretty quick. So the last survey I did took on average 15 minutes to complete.
Right.
So it is not onerous. And if you're a small business, do it every 6 months to be pragmatic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've got 5 staff members, right? This is a really easy thing to kind of keep on a regular basis. Okay, so now we've painted this landscape of where we can slot people in, or where we're dipping. Actually, that's probably what it is, right? It's actually where you're lacking in diversity, not where your score is high, right? What's the next step after kind of, assessing the data of your staff?
I think it's workshopping. So when you get that information from that survey, acting on it, bringing people in together. There's definitely a massive piece about a bit traditional, but training, learning and development.
Yeah. So training in, do you mean training in diversity and inclusion? Is it kind of that classic stuff where everyone's sitting around a TV screen and, don't talk, is it that, or is it more role playing?
I think there's been a bit of a trend over the last few years. So people have realised DEI is important to individuals. You've got younger people coming up saying, actually, they're asking the question of businesses of, where are you on D&I? And I don't want to join unless
that's
you're
right. The generations
on that
coming
journey.
up do want purpose in their role. That's one of the biggest things that they ask for when they go to the interview, or what job they pick, or what brand they want to go and work for.
Purpose, sustainability,
it's absolutely purpose-driven.
diversity.
Yeah, 100%.
What were we talking about a second ago?
We
sidetracked ourselves.
We did indeed.
What were we doing next? Training.
That's right.
Training, yeah.
So what's happened a little bit is people have gone, I get that DEI is important to employees, to productivity. We should do some training. So let's do half a day of DEI training.
Tick. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well done us. Pat on the back.
Yeah.
But it doesn't touch the surface, does it? It's
and it's bite size. So it's about drip feed this to people. You know, keep coming. Maybe you can do it monthly. You could do half an hour on a topic. You could do quarterly. Just keep it going, but also think about what it is you're training in. So you need to start unpicking things like unconscious bias. You know, people thought about
so that's
this.
a big thing as well now, unconscious bias. I've got a friend who works with quite a large company, and they've just kind of surveyed their entire global staff around unconscious bias, and it's a great step forward, you know. And it's that thing. It is that unconscious bias where you actually don't know you're not including people. You know, you feel you might be doing it, but actually, oh god, now I'll actually see the data in front of me. You know. Struggling to get your business to stand out amongst competitors? Capital Content can help.
Our sales and marketing backgrounds, as well as our expertise in video, photo, audio, social, and design,
will give you the ultimate edge in lead and sales generation.
From ideation to execution, from social media management to drone tours.
Capital Content is your secret weapon to stand out and be seen amongst the competition through content.
To find out more about our services or chat to us about your business's needs,
head to capitalcontent.co. So talking about I'm assuming the client that you may have helped, what kind of outcomes would a business expect if they do start to correctly address inclusion and diversity?
Oh,
huge, right? So, you know, what I'm expecting is better team culture.
Yep.
You know, probably productivity is increasing because everyone feels in a safer space. And I think even, you know, positivity in their output, in the actual products that they create or services that they deliver, right?
All of those things, but really important that, again, you go under the iceberg, you measure what you can't see, particularly you're always going to get in a team, some people are going to be vocal. They're going to offer their point of view. They're going to say, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
And then you're always going to get team members who don't. And that anonymous survey,
the quiet voice,
it gives everybody the voice if they choose to have it.
Yeah.
And then you come back at it and you use that as a form of measurement of, well, we've put some steps in place. Are they telling us we've improved?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is 100% of people feeling valued? And that gives you your measurement to keep going. But another thing that's really key is you pick some goals. So, you know, we've learned who's in our team, what's working, what's not working, where we think we need to get to, where we might have gaps. What are the two or three big things we're going to go after in the next couple of years for accountability?
What would those goals be? What goals, thinking about the listeners, you know, they're small businesses, they're anything between, you know, solopreneurs right up to, I don't know, 50, 100 people, 100 staff, right? What kind of goals should these organizations set themselves to help progress through diversity and inclusion?
So I think if you're a bigger team, and this could be, let's go 20 people, so it doesn't have to be massive, but some of those are going to be key internal metrics. You know, do you represent the community around you in gender, in race and ethnicity, in sexual orientation?
Do you mean the business community? Sorry, the other businesses and people that live in, let's say, Weybridge, for example. You're saying that, you know, do you represent the people that live in Weybridge? As a team? The
people that you could pull your employees from.
Okay,
but have you got a fair representation of your community?
Right.
So, for example, I'll challenge a London business who says to me, right, Ali, the representation of ethnic minorities in the UK is X%.
Yeah, we want to reflect that.
They're London-based.
Right.
London has a much, much higher proportion of ethnic minorities. So shouldn't you be pushing yourself to be more representative of that higher number? And then the other thing you're going to think about is, who's your customer? Who are you serving? Yeah. So
that's a really good benchmark to look at.
You want to represent
the community around you. Yeah.
The community around you and the community you're serving.
Right. Like who your audience is. Reflect the audience. Yeah.
Yeah. Because otherwise, how can you serve them brilliantly and understand them?
I want to go back to, sorry, briefly, you talked about, you've done that survey and you said, so what do you do with that, right? So what, you've got that data and you mentioned about training, but what else is there? Because what sprung to mind with me is sometimes it isn't about training like the whole team, because there's often pockets of different things happening and certain dynamics. So is it sometimes just about having conversations, or what else might it be?
It's
huge, isn't it?
This
right?
is the lovely
That's why
thing.
I thought it's not just training, is it?
It is complete, and I think that's a bit of a myth. I think there are two myths: that you get put in a bucket of training. Let's solve everything with training, and let's solve everything with recruitment. And
or they feel it starts with recruitment.
Both of those play an important role. But I think a lot of people sit there going, "Crikey, DEI, belonging. Yeah. Where do I start?"
Too hard basket.
Yeah, a common one is people have kind of gender neutralised CVs.
Right.
Great. That absolutely is something to do.
Gender neutralised CVs. How do you mean?
So when a CV comes in, it doesn't say male, female. You remove the names, because it's research has proven this unconscious bias. Yeah. People are still filtering, even though they don't want to, they don't mean to.
Yeah, sure.
So there's lots of stepping stones, but there are others. So the way I approach it is to go through what I call the employee life cycle. So think of the different stages. So yes, absolutely, recruitment is a stage. So is leadership accountability. So what was the leadership doing? Yeah. So is team management. So have you equipped your line managers to be, on it? What levers can they pull for belonging, for DEI, employee engagement? So there's things like, whatever the makeup of your team is, are you exposed beyond your own team? Do you socialise outside? If you go for a team meeting, where do you go? Do you naturally go to a place that you feel really comfortable and might be more Me Too's, because we all have that kind of affinity bias? Yeah. Or do you go somewhere really different that stretches you, that exposes you to difference?
A neutral ground maybe even as well, yeah.
I mean, on that inclusion point, like I remember, so I used to work in the media sector, and what we used to do pre-having children was all to go for drinks after work, and that was what we did. Yeah. And then I had children. Actually, I wanted to get home to put my children to bed. And suddenly I felt totally excluded from that group. Yeah. So the reason I'm saying that is that sometimes I think it's about taking a moment to critically reflect on the processes or cultural norms within our organisations and go, is that inclusive? And
I think that sends some people into a spin, going, just this is making everything really hard.
Yeah.
But I think the way you've described it is, no, everything's an opportunity. If you just think that little bit harder. So in your example, how could you feel included?
Well, then we start doing team breakfasts and occasionally and stuff like that, and it wasn't about, we can't go out for drinks anymore, because it was like different ways that we can kind of connect. But, I needed to feel comfortable enough so I could say it.
Yeah.
I've
just finished reading, but I promised I was reading this book before I got invited to this podcast. It is called Belonging.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Very good. Recommend it.
Give me the details. We'll put it in the show notes.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But there's this lovely concept that I'd never heard in there before. Well, lovely, not lovely. Punishment. So fun punishment.
Wow.
So the idea of, the example they gave was somebody had just turned up to a whole new business, whole new team, and they're invited to go paintballing. It not only wasn't their cup of tea, but they weren't physically able to participate. Right. And so you go from something that was designed to involve them, to help belonging, to something that's totally isolated them. So I thought, this idea of punishment just makes you go, really think this through. And your example is lovely of, they've pivoted and tried to make it inclusive for everybody, but it's just constantly being cognizant and mindful and thoughtful to make it work for everyone.
I mean, I don't want to go too much down a rabbit hole, but the other thing that I've thought about when I've thought about belonging and creating a sense of belonging, because I do a lot of work with leaders and in leadership development, but I think so much often is put on leaders to create that space and ensure everyone's included. And I get that, that's really important, but I think there is so much mental ill health and anxiety, and I think the pandemic has done quite a lot to lower people's self-esteem, that sometimes even if a leader is trying to like make sure everyone feels like they belong, actually, you know, what's happening in someone's head may not be a byproduct of the environment you're creating. And I think sometimes as an organisation, it might be worth, if you know you've got someone like that in your team, like what support can you give them as an individual to kind of make them aware of their strengths, to like, it's very much like saying everyone's worthy of a place at the table, and then making sure everyone's got a seat. But I need to also feel that I am good enough to sit down. Do you see what I mean?
So 2 ways in which I 100% agree with you. So one is that employee life cycle I described, that's kind of the model approach. I added health and wellbeing to it. So lots of them are the standard ones you'd expect: recruitment, recognition and reward, employee engagement. But health and wellbeing, it's so big and it's so important, you've got to call it out on its own. The other is I kind of work through what are the stepping stones for an SME in their DEI journey.
Yeah.
And I've put right at the start, support. Before you've done anything, how is it your business can support individuals? Because these conversations, you might already know individuals who are having a harder time, you might not, and this might bring that out of the woodwork, which is a great thing. But have you started to think about how you're going to look after them? What are your mechanisms?
That's right. And it's funny, we spoke about this in a previous episode, where actually times have changed and we have to offer not only more support as leaders or business owners to staff, but also a different type or an emotive support, pastoral support to our employees, because that's the generation that's kind of coming up through the ranks now, where they do need that. You know, like I said, 25 odd years ago, I never would have even thought about needing mental health support at work.
Yeah,
you just be told to, well, you know, have a couple of concrete pills, right? But nowadays, no, that's actually got to be at the forefront of not only in the recruitment process, but actually in the HR ongoing, right?
Yeah, and I think, Lisa, part of your point was, how do you do it that in a way that it's not just top down? Like, all of this needs to come from the leadership.
Yeah.
And it's the
How
culture
do you
probably that nurtures
empower-
that after that, right?
And there's some lovely things out there like mental health first aid.
Yes.
So you're equipped, do you give that to everybody in your team so they all feel more empowered to support each other? Do you encourage a buddy system? Pick a buddy. And if you're a small business, do you connect with another business? It might be a non-compete business. It might be a neighbour.
That's a good idea, right? That's a great tip there.
But you may not have enough people within your own team, but you'll have other businesses who need the same thing. Buddy outside might be great, or mentoring. These are all support mechanisms that can empower the team. So lead from the top, but you've also got to empower people so they've got kind of social ownership. Otherwise, it's just not going to move fast enough.
Yeah. And when you say not move fast enough, is there time? Let's say you've kind of like uncovered a challenge, right? Where the diversity inclusion is not being addressed as well as the business would like it to be. Is there a time frame? Is there, we can solve this in 6 months? Or is it just an ongoing, cultural education to get the business constantly going? Or is it, can I just solve it tomorrow kind of thing? Let's solve it in 5 working days kind of thing.
It's kind of both.
Right. So there are definitive things I can do tomorrow, but then there's also a cultural investment moving forward.
I think it's always nice at the start of the journey to get some low-hanging fruit.
Oh, yeah. I want to see changes straight away, right?
And recruitment's a space that's quite easy. Once you realise some of the levers available to you, you just go, why wouldn't I be doing that? Tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
Get that low-hanging fruit. But that's part of why I say always set those goals, because some of these things do take take more time.
You want to see progress. Yeah.
That's why you want to measure quarterly or every 6 months. Am I going hang on, we're not going in the right direction. Right, pivot. What do we need to do and change? But I think in SMEs, you would be amazed how much you can change, how quickly, and the benefits you get from it.
Right.
But I think it's about sustained change though, isn't it? Because sometimes you can kind of change in one particular way and keep that going for a bit, but it's not going to be, it's about changing like a whole culture shift, which can take quite a lot of time.
And it's never done, is it? Like you improve one thing and something else
It is an ongoing
moves.
thing. Yeah, oh gosh, yeah.
But the
Staff
beauty is-
leave, you know.
But you're moving. I'm going to sound really cheesy now, but you're moving together.
Oh, yeah.
If you're having that conversation,
Sounds like part of the training on a flat screen TV, right? Yeah. But let's move together. But no, you're totally right, though. That's exactly what it is, right? You do need to move as one single unit. And if you're not having that communication between the team, then you're not going to grow emotionally as well as, fiscally.
yeah, 100%.
I've learnt loads.
Yeah, me too as well. We went through all the tips, did we?
No, I think you gave us one. What was that first one? That was a huge thing.
So about know your team.
Yes.
So the data, the surveys.
Yes,
you know,
that was
the-
know your team.
Huge.
Yeah.
I've never thought about data points. I mean, we're a digital agency, right? I look at data points on people all the time in terms of advertising. What phones they use, whether they've spent money in the last 30 days. These are all data points, for advertising. But absolutely, from an emotive perspective, you should really address those data points on a per employee perspective. I love it. What other?
So we talked about goals.
Yes.
Talked about setting goals for
Goals is
accountability.
great, yeah.
We talked about punishment. I've just thought,
Oh,
can I
yeah.
add one to punishment? 'Cause
Yes.
I've come up with this.
Oh yeah,
Which probably means it's going to be awful.
this is trademarked. Yeah.
Right, ready?
Yeah.
Publishment.
Oh.
So
Tell me more.
What if going to the pub is punishment for some people?
Oh God! It
Now,
is.
it's definitely not for me.
Put
I'm
me
in.
on the naughty step. I want
Yeah.
some punishment.
But UK is quite a pub culture, isn't it?
It's 100%.
I know.
So it's the
I
same as the
know.
punishment, but I think it's a watch out.
Yeah.
It is that alcohol culture as well, isn't
there's
it?
a big thing
That-
recently about not, including alcohol in work events, like specifically not including
Yeah.
alcohol, to try and keep that inclusion piece. As a digital agency, we're all relatively young, innovative, and party-esque, right? So it does always kind of come through that alcohol happens to be in the same room as us, right? But it is tough.
But if you don't,
Yeah.
if you had someone on your team who didn't drink, how would that impact their
Yeah,
sense of
that's
belonging,
right.
right?
Yeah,
so
we
it's
are-
a
we
really
are-
good.
Yeah, absolutely. We are across it. So what we had one girl that was fasting for Ramadan. So I made a point of emailing everybody else on the team to say, hey, don't eat your lunch in the office. Make sure you eat in the meeting room. And
Yeah,
it's just,
really
I think
nice.
it's just having that, that constant thought in the back of your head. How can we address everybody's, concerns?
And I'm going to carry another tip onto that.
Hit me.
So how do you ensure that everyone gets a voice? So you just stood up and
Yeah.
vocalized that, and it was a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure everyone's got a voice at the table. And sometimes that means different modes of communication.
Right.
So I learned recently, have you ever used Slido?
No.
No.
So I've seen it often used in like big meetings, so you can vote and a bit of interactivity. Actually, you can just use it as a communications tool with a team because not everyone wants to vocalize and verbalize.
Do you know what?
Slido's
Yes, I have
anonymous.
seen this. Yeah.
You just tap in and you can put
Is
your
it like
thoughts
during
up there.
presentations, people are allowed to vote on things?
Yeah.
They put it up on the side and then you go text this.
Yeah,
or
it's
like
you
an
mention
add-on,
this.
isn't
You
it?
could
Yeah.
set it. It's super easy to.
Yeah, that's
even,
really good.
Even I can manage Slido.
It's like a suggestions box.
Totally. And you could put it out to a team of 5 people
Yeah.
and go, give us your thoughts. Anonymous.
Yeah.
You might find the people who tend to be quieter come through that.
That's right. They might not all want to say it in a group meeting, but suppose it's creating different opportunities for them to communicate. Some people find it. I'd rather think about how I want to say it and put it onto a text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather, I know that's a bit of a coward's way. But it's a way.
Yeah.
It's
No, that's
about
right, yeah.
opening. I've sometimes had difficult conversations I've had to have, and I've written it out first, and
Yeah.
then I've gone, I'd rather just send this and actually talk to them. But it doesn't matter how you start it. It's about But I suppose it's creating those moments for everyone. In
As
different
a safe
ways.
space as well, right?
Yeah.
And if you, as a leader, as a team, can set up a culture of asking and listening. So somebody might be judgmental about Lisa's style of doing things, but if they've asked you and understood, now that's what really works for you, great, they've got context. So sometimes it's just about asking the question, asking what people's preferences are, listening, be aware and process that, just being open.
Yeah, this has been my favourite one so far because I've written because
Tell me we're not the first.
no, you're the second. It's those things, and it kind of goes back to kind of the onus of this podcast is that have the conversations that people aren't having that need to be had. So how do people get in touch if they want to talk to you about purpose and belonging?
So I'm often on LinkedIn. So
Yep.
if you look up Ali Fisher or Plans with Purpose, or there's a website, I love to chat.
Cool, man. Don't we all?
So if anyone wants to talk about sustainability, diversity, equity and inclusion, I'm here.
You're there.
I'd
You-
love to bounce ideas
Slide
around.
into the DMs, right?
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Give me a shout.
How about you, Lisa? Have you enjoyed today's topic?
Yeah, it's been really good. Thank you so much for coming on.
thanks
It's
for
been
having
really
me.
good to connect. And thanks to anyone who has tuned in to listen to us today. Please remember to like or subscribe if you want to get some more content from us. I'm Lisa Carver from Carver Coaching.
And I'm Gary from Capital Content.
And
Ali Fisher from Plans with Purpose.
and this has been The Compass.
Thanks very much.